What is up, everybody? We're here on another episode of the Stay Tranquilo Podcast. I'm here with Alex Blanco. Of course, she'll make her intro. But before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know that this episode is sponsored by Stella Rosa. They have an assortment of different products from non-alcoholic wines to canned wines to rosés. It's a great product, easy drinking, tons of flavor. I mean, you can never go wrong with some canned wine. So they got their grapefruit flavor, they got their blueberry flavor that Alex is drinking. So check them out whenever you get the chance, but great product. So before we get started, I wanted to just kind of like give a little rundown about Alex and some of the things that she's working on. She's doing some awesome things. She's got her own company in Rayna Social, so she'll definitely touch on that. But a bunch of different projects that I think she could bring a lot of value today. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. But yeah, I'll toss it to you. Let them know a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I am so excited to be here and appreciate the platform. So Rayna Social Club is an all-female networking group. It's a community where we really promote the professional and personal development of all women. So really just prioritizing expanding your network, making genuine connections, and empowering women to lean into their talents, lean into their skills, and share those gifts with the world. And so everything that we do is highly intentional, highly curated. So everything in our events and every part of our community is highlighting and supporting a local female-owned business. So our venue, our videographer, our photographer, our food, our beverages, our raffle prizes, our vendors, literally every aspect of the event is supporting a local female-owned company. So we really try to stay true to our mission in creating that community of female founders, creatives, and just sharing resources with each other through everything that you go through on a personal and professional level.
I love that. That's awesome. And to kind of rewind, right? What was it that made you want to start something like Rayna, right? Was there something in the market that you're like, hey, there's not enough of this out there? What was it for you that was like, hey, you know what? I want to start this.
Yeah. So on a personal level, I first of all just come from a big family. I have a sister. I have lots of female cousins. And my family has always been very supportive, very encouraging. You know, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And then I went to an all-girl high school here in Miami. And that, again, was just very empowering. You know, they teach you that you can do whatever you put your mind to. You just have to work hard, make connections. And then I went to college and I was part of a sorority. And there, again, it's like a little government. Like when you're in a sorority, yes, there's a social aspect, but there's a huge leadership aspect behind it if you choose to lean into it. And that was so empowering, so inspiring. It really gave me a lot of drive. Like I felt that like groove and that rhythm when I was in that. And then I went to the workforce and COVID hit. So then it's like there's no community, there's no empowerment. And I realized that was something that once you left the education system and once you left like your family unit, you know, you're not with your family every day. How do you get that empowerment? Where do you get that source? And I started talking to other women who were students, employees, employers, creatives, and they all felt that lack. Like there was a need for a space to just talk about things that, you know, back in our parents' generation would be considered taboo, you know, like back in the 80s for a woman to admit that she was overwhelmed with work and childcare, like that was frowned upon. Whereas today, that's something that we can talk about and then share resources of how do you overcome that challenge. And also just to feel like you're not crazy, like you feel understood. Like, you know, everyone knows that sense of relief when you just feel like related to, and you're like, okay, like there's someone else out there like that. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. So I realized that we needed to build this community, and I started just bringing in friends that I knew could help me build this company, build this mission, and it's grown so much since that initial event. Like I thought it was just gonna be a one-time event during COVID. I was like, let's just empower people, get people together. Like we've all been in quarantine, and then it ended up growing, and we're 2 years later and still just continuing to innovate the type of events that we do so that they're constantly progressing.
Yeah, no, and there's something that I think you touched on that I think is extremely important. It's the aspect of not doing it alone, right? You said that you brought in friends, you brought in other people, because you knew you couldn't do it yourself, right? And for me, that's something that I've always struggled with, right? Because it's like your little baby, and you want to really take care of it, but you know that there's other people that can provide value outside of the things that maybe you can do, right? That ultimately can help you get to, where you want it to go. So can you touch on a little bit about how that process was of like who you decided that you wanted to bring on board, why that person, and some of the things that they were able to provide for you?
Yeah, definitely. So you hit the nail on the head. Like, your company is your baby.
Yeah.
So it can be really hard to kind of let go and relinquish that control and delegate. But I really try to think, I'm kind of crazy. Like, I think of Rayna as her own being. Like, it's not about me, it's about Rayna. And Rayna is essentially our community. So you have to release your ego. What is best for the company, what is best for the community, not what's best for me.
Yeah.
And so if as a company we're promoting collaboration, we're promoting networking, we're promoting shining your light and sharing your gifts, how can we not do that internally?
Right.
So I essentially evaluated my gifts, my skill set, my talents, what I enjoy doing, and then what do I dislike doing? What am I bad at? For example, for me, finances. Like, I can budget, very simple earnings, savings, spending. But other than that, like running a company, I don't know how to do that.
Right.
So bringing in someone for that. And then like automation with social media, I don't know how to do that. So bringing in someone for that. And just really identifying your skills and your weaknesses, and then identifying those in others and bringing it all together, because at the end of the day, it takes a village, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a village. So like, you need to bring in other people to continue growing, because if it's just your perspective, if it's just your insight, it's very easy to plateau and kind of just remain complacent in how you've been doing things and not innovate and not move forward. But that's what you need to do to develop as a company and develop as a community. So I'm very blessed that a lot of my friends and a lot of actually Rayna members that I met at Rayna events have ended up coming on board as part of the team, because they believe in the mission, they believe in the impact and the value of these events and what we're doing. So I also just feel very blessed that people see what we're doing and they know it matters.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Rayna obviously didn't start off as Rayna, right?
Yeah.
So tell them a little bit about like when you first started it, like the name that you had there, and then how it kind of evolved into Rayna.
Yes. So when we hosted our first event, we didn't even have a name. We were just like, oh, we're hosting a female empowerment
This is
event.
Alex Blanco's female empowerment.
Yeah. And then it was crazy. So we hosted it at Rhythm and Vine, which is a female-owned company by Nallhart Hospitality. And we've actually hosted a few other events with their other venues. But it was a hit. Literally, we had like 70, 80 women show up. We had a ton of walk-ins. And everyone's asking, like, what do we tag you on Instagram? When's your next event? What's your website? And I'm like, we don't have any of this. So I spoke with my right-hand girl, Danny. She's my partner. And I was like, Danny, we need a name. We need a website. We need an Instagram. So literally within like a week, I created our website, created our Instagram. And we were originally called Corporate Connection by Women for Women, which it's crazy. It feels so... like, that doesn't even feel like that was ever our name. Like, Rayna feels like it was our name.
It's a great name.
Thank you. And so with Corporate Connection, my idea was like, we're going to bridge the gap between like corporate life and creatives and like connecting women. And then it was by women for women, so that people knew it was all female.
Yeah.
And then funny enough, maybe like a year in, we have had really successful events. Our community's growing at a very rapid rate organically. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to trademark this just to like protect our intellectual property. I don't want to run into any hiccups down the road. And then when I go to trademark it, I see that it's already been trademarked. So I'm like, oh my God. And it wasn't in the state of Florida, but it was like a national trademark.
Right.
So that's why I had never realized it. We were able to register as an LLC under that name because the company wasn't registered in Florida. So like, I thought it was all good. And then
Yeah.
when I go to register this, I'm like, they're a national
Yeah, trade.
thing. So I was like, man, okay, we need to rebrand. And it's so funny because when hiccups happen, you think it's the end of the world.
Right.
You're like, how am I ever going to move past this? And then a year later, it's like, oh, I forgot that happened.
Exactly.
And
Well, it gravitated you exactly where you needed to be, you know?
Yeah.
Or you're supposed to be, at least.
And so it's funny because I kid you not, 2 months every night. I was on dictionary.com, thesaurus.com, reading books from female authors, trying to pull words. I was like, are we going to rebrand? And I couldn't find it. I was like looking for synonyms that were similar to our old name. And then one night, it just like a train hit me. I was
crazy.
it needs to be one word. Corporate connection by women for women. That's
Too
a
much.
slogan.
Yeah.
That's a description. That's not
Yeah.
a brand. That's not a name. So I started thinking of like Panera. Panera. Do you know what Panera means?
I have no idea.
It means pan era. So bread forever is literally
Wow.
what it means. So I was like, okay, we need to get like more creative.
Yeah.
And then I was like, Apple, Dell, Advil, like
Right.
any
It is
big
a lot
brand.
of one word brands, yeah.
So
and
I
I
was-
think I forget where I saw it, but that was the whole component. They're like, everyone tries to do too much with the name, and you just look at some of the largest brands in the world. They're all one word and it's simple. There's a lot behind it.
Right.
And the brand identity and kind of what they stand for and the meaning of the name, but it's not essentially like all about the name. It's more about what the brand means and how the name kind of ties into it.
Exactly. Like Nike isn't called Just Do It apparel.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's like Just Do It is their slogan, it's
Yeah.
their tagline, but Nike is the brand, it's the identity. And so once I was able to shift my mindset, which let me tell you, it was very difficult. Like I was self-sabotaging. I was so stuck in the synonyms and something similar to what we already have that I wasn't seeing the bigger picture. And it wasn't until I took a step back that then I was like, duh, you know? And so it's
Yeah.
just so funny. Like I laugh at the journey of life and how we are as humans. It's so interesting. But so then I was walking in Coral Gables and I saw a sign that said La Reina, but it was like spelled
That's so
Reina
crazy.
like queen in Spanish. And I was like, I like this, but I don't. Like Reina spelled like queen is too basic, but I like the idea. Like it's, first of all, encompasses women
Right.
already. So there's getting our one
Yep.
mission. And then like we're trying to elevate each other, raise each other up. So, you know, queen is perfect for that.
Yeah.
But then I was like, there's something missing. And then I thought back to our mission. And our mission is to highlight female businesses and encourage women to shine. So I was like, okay, a ray of light, RAY. So then that's how Rayna, RAYNA,
Got
came to
it.
be. And then Social Club for her is kind of our tagline. So I really just call
Okay,
it
that's
Rayna,
cool.
but we're Rayna Social Club,
Right.
Rayna Social Club for her. And that was one of the biggest challenges I thought we had, and then it ended up being a huge blessing. I think Rayna has allowed us to identify ourselves to the right market.
Yeah.
People get it, and so yeah, very interesting.
And I'm like here sitting here, I'm like laughing because when I was when I was going through the Stay Tranquilo process, right? Like and like thinking about the name, I had for like a short time had called it like It's a Vibe, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's just like I'm like It's a Vibe, like that's like what I want to promote, right? But again, I was never married to it. Like I didn't love it, but it was what built the traction in the beginning, right? But I'm like I'm not in love with this. So kind of same thing. I was like kind of sitting on names and like thinking about it, and then just like one day it kind of hit me. I'm like tranquilo, like we all want to like be tranquilo, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like whatever. So I sat on it. I wasn't even married to it, but I liked it. Kind of like the same thing with you. And I'll never forget. I'm at my brother's baseball game, and he was probably like in fifth grade at the time. And there was this little kid sitting in front of me, and he goes to his mom, Mom, you know what makes me tranquilo? And I'm like. The kid, I hadn't heard a kid say one Spanish word the whole time. And he's just running around. He's like, and he goes to his mom and he says that, and he's just right in front of me. I'm like, I just like looked at the kid. I'm like, well, okay, that was weird. And like that was
Like
when
a sign.
Yeah, it's a sign. Like so many like subtle little things that, and you kind of touched on it about like the whole, getting your mind right and getting into place. When you put yourself in that space of like receiving and like being open-minded, the universe is going to give you some crazy signs like that, and you're going to think, oh, that's crazy, but it's true. Like you put it out there saying like, hey, I'm searching for this, give me an answer, right? And that's the universe giving you an answer right there.
Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't explicitly say that, but you picked up on it, and it's true. During that process, I was like, God, like, please, I was like, make it so
Of course.
obvious that I can't miss this sign. Like,
Yeah.
I need to rebrand, like, now. It's already been 2 months of me thinking, like, I have
Yeah.
a list of 300 alternate names, and I hate all of them. Like, please just guide me. And he did. He did. And so it's
and
awesome.
everything lined up, right? The name was available, everything.
Yes, the name was
So-
available. We ended up trademarking that. Like, all good.
Because like there was a bunch of Tranquilo kind of brands out there or something. There's like a Tranquilo mat there for like babies. There was like a Tranquilo, I don't know, a pair of some. It wasn't even an apparel. I forget what it was, but there's a couple things that had, but there was nothing that was like Stay Tranquilo, right?
Yeah.
And the website was available. The trademark was available. The the LLC in the state of Florida was
Right.
available. So I was like, this is it. And then as you start doing it, you're like, damn, okay, people like the name too, so it's receptive to the market, and then from there, that's where the magic, I guess, begins.
Yeah, it really does. And again, I felt like it was a blessing because, like I mentioned, like I was just planning on hosting one event. So
Yeah.
when it grew into something more, it was almost unintentional.
Yeah.
So rebranding allowed us the opportunity to really get granular on what we wanted our brand to be. And so even just what I ended up doing was we hired a branding team. They no longer do branding. They only do interior design now, but girls who do interiors, shout out to them. They're amazing. And so we hired them, and basically what I did is I picked my favorite photos from our previous events, and I started highlighting colors from our actual people and from our actual venues. And I was like, this is our brand. Like, the community is our brand. And so we picked our color palette from actual pictures from our events, which was so awesome.
Cool.
And same with our font. The whole creative process just became so much more intentional. And like you mentioned, after you rebrand, or once you decided to go all in on
Right.
Stay Tranquilo, people resonate with that brand. They can sense the meaning behind it.
Right. Yeah, you need, and you guys do an amazing job of that. You need people to feel connected with what you're trying to preach, and whatever that is. Everyone preaches something differently and kind of has their own brand identity, but you're not a brand unless people resonate with it. And whether it's for good or for bad, but that's the reality of it. And that's how you build a community. And community is a place where people can kind of feel like themselves without feeling judged or anything like that. So
Yeah.
you guys are doing an awesome job, and I think it's
Thank
really
you.
really cool to see.
Thank
But one of the things that we talked about prior was kind of the whole balance aspect of things, right? So Rayna is something that you do, but you also have a full-time job as well, right? So we were kind of touching on it before, like how do you balance all of that, right? You got the full-time job, you hang out with your friends, you go to weddings, right? You run Rayna. How does that whole process of balance work for you?
It's a constant effort. I think it's something that we all struggle with, right? How do we get more time in our day? How do we maximize the time in our day? So I think, first of all, it's something I'm constantly struggling with. Most people in my life know I suck at balancing, honestly. I feel like I'm either feast or famine. I'm either working crazy hard or I'm chilling, So it's it's kind of hard.
It's kind of and I don't know if this is the word, but it is the word. It's it's a battle a little bit,
It's a battle.
When do I let off the pedal? When do I put down the pedal? And maybe that is the balance, It's a kind of a stop and go, but it's I don't know if you want to be on cruise control almost, but
Right.
you kind of almost do want to be on cruise control, because then when you're on cruise control, that's when you're more focused, you're a little bit more clear, you're not thinking. But there's also a lot of good that comes in the chaos, and there's a lot of good that comes in the peace, right?
Yeah. I love that you said the word chaos, because my friends are always like, hey, how are you? I'm living through the chaos.
Chaos.
And
It's
laughing
chaos.
through the chaos, because it's just nonstop. So to be practical, I do think I have a pretty good idea of how to balance. So first is time blocking. When I'm working my 9 to 5, and a lot of people ask me, they're like, why do you still work a 9 to 5? I'm like, I love my company. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. So I do want to take Rayna full time eventually, but right now I'm not in a rush. I enjoy contributing. I enjoy serving. I enjoy learning from really just awesome people. I love the people I work with, and I learn so much, and I'm challenged so much. So when I'm at work, I'm at work.
Yeah.
And then when I'm doing Rayna work, like I'm doing Rayna work. So just making sure to commit to whatever time blocks you have. And then I have a daily checklist, and I've been following it for like almost 9 years now. And essentially it's a pre-made list of my favorite things to do. So, and things that you forget to do if you don't remind yourself why they're important. So like making your bed. I literally have a to-do list that has that. And people are like, oh, but that's so simple. Yeah, but watch, once you get into a depressive episode, or you're feeling down, or you're feeling stuck, that's going to be the first habit to go, is making your bed. Same with opening your blinds. Sometimes we just want to wallow in the darkness, and it's like, no, get that sunlight, breathe the fresh air, breathe in oxygen, like. And so I have these daily things, I keep track of my water. I make sure I have to call like a friend or a family member every day, listen to music, stretch, see sunlight. Like there's a bunch of things that I do daily, but you don't have to do them every day. It's just a checklist there to hold yourself accountable, because you need to audit yourself. And so it's like, okay, it's been a week and I haven't read a book, or it's been a week and I haven't listened to a podcast, and like I haven't done anything for personal development. Like, wow, I should really check that off today. Or some days you get it all done and you're like, oh my God, I'm killing it. And then essentially, aside from that, those are not non-negotiables. Those are just nice to have things that keep you in that rhythm, keep you good. But then I have a slot where I write in my priorities every day. So it's like, your priorities are your non-negotiable. Like, okay, I have to record this podcast. I have to do groceries. I have to take my dog to the vet. I have to go to yoga and whatever. So like that I feel helps, because we honestly, like, society has just made it that you have a never-ending to-do list. Like, I have a wedding in 2 weeks. I have to go to the tailor. I have to go to do this. Like,
there's
it's
always
like
something. Just when you think things are coming down, the next thing comes up.
Exactly.
Whether it was intentionally planned or not, but there's always something. And a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, it's like a common thing. Like, you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Because if you're not, then the uncomfortable is the inevitable, right? You're gonna face it at some point. And if you're not able to kind of like deal with it in a certain way, however that way works for you, but that's effective, that's efficient, that's healthy, right? Then you're gonna continue to evolve, because you just got through that one obstacle, and then you're gonna get through the next and the next and the next, and that's where the growth really comes. But a lot of people become like, I don't know what the word is. It's not complacent, but it's like almost like comfortable with just what is, but then they realize that it actually creates more discomfort.
Yeah.
It's like you're fighting so hard to keep this comfort, and you're actually creating more discomfort in that process.
And I think that's because change and challenges are guaranteed in life. Like, there's no way around it. So even if you think like you're cruising, you're not. You're not. Going to come around the corner.
The moment you get comfortable, you actually might start going backwards, right? And it's not to say like create discomfort, but it's like learn how to utilize it as like a leverage, right? And almost like as something powerful, because like to your point, you're gonna deal with it at some capacity in your life, and you could choose to do something about it, or you could choose to just kind of like sit in it and like let it affect you. And you can't. You got to be proactive. You got to take action. And I always say, like, actions speak louder than words, and they do, right? Because it shows a lot more about your character when you kind of like are proactive in doing things. Because I'm one of these people that like, I hate to make excuses, right? And if I catch myself making excuses, that's like me like giving up my power almost, kind of thing, right? Where I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow, or like, you know what, like I don't need to do that, like just that kind of what you were saying, like that chatter that you have in your head, and you can
you literally self-sabotage yourself.
You do.
Yeah, so like basically like to bring it all together is prioritize and execute. So like those priorities, those non-negotiables, don't worry about all the other noise. Like, yes, you have other things on your to-do list, but if they're not time sensitive, if they're not urgent, if they're not needed to get done today, leave it to tomorrow. Do your 5 priorities, and then, hop on FaceTime with a loved one, go to a yoga class, whatever it is. But just trying not to get so caught up in it, because like at the end of the day, everyone has a to-do list that is never ending. The minute you check off 5 things, 10 other things get added. So it's like, kind of just know like everything will get done, right? Like, you've already survived up to this point. Like, things, the world is going to keep on turning.
A good thing too to do, like, and I do it a lot too, is like look back at what you've been able to accomplish, because sometimes you look so much of like what's going on right now and you feel so far away from maybe where you want to be, but you're like, damn, look where I was actually able to get to, and like where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever that time frame is. But be like, hey, I was able to accomplish all this, and if you feel like you haven't actually accomplished anything in those X amount of years, months, whatever that may be, then you also have to have like a realistic conversation with yourself and be like, hey, you know what, maybe I do got to change this, maybe I got to see what my priorities are, and the non-negotiables is the way to kind of do that. It's like, today I have to do this, like it's not an option, I have to make sure if I get it done. Obviously things happen throughout the day that may alter that, but you at least made it a priority, and you can't make it a pattern to not take care of your non-negotiables, essentially.
Exactly. And like I used to have this mindset, it's like a popular phrase, but I had this mindset like, why put off for tomorrow what can be done today?
Yeah.
And at first I loved it because I was hyper productive, but then I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually if it can be put off tomorrow, why not? Like just focus on today's priorities. Like what is urgent? And so there's actually this like phrase in yoga called loving awareness. And for the longest time I would hear it and like thought it sounded beautiful, but I didn't really understand what it meant. And then a couple weeks ago I was listening to this podcast completely unrelated to yoga, and the guy mentioned loving awareness, and he's like, loving awareness is being in love with everything you're aware about. So it doesn't mean I have to love the struggle, but I should love and admire and appreciate the fact that I'm even aware that I'm struggling, that I'm in a rut, that I'm feeling stuck, or vice versa. Like being aware, like we were just smiling talking about our biggest challenges, because it's like we're awake, we're alive, we're conscious, and life is not guaranteed to be easy. So there's this quote by Peter Haggerty. I literally post it all the time because it's just such a good reminder, and it's life is a journey, and if you want to be in love forever, you have to fall in love with the journey. So like embrace the highs, embrace the lows, because they're always coming. They're always around the corner, right? It's kind of, Matthew McConaughey has this great book, Green Lights, and how he refers it to is green lights and red lights. It's like sometimes you have all this momentum, everything's going great, you're catching all the green lights, and then boom, you have to slam on your brakes for this sudden red light. But when you're there, like, take a look around. What's the view? What's the scenery? What do the billboards say? What do the bumper stickers say? And see what you can learn to take that into your next, up.
100%. Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the whole yoga thing, right? Because obviously it's a big part of your practice. What has yoga kind of taught you, and how is it something that's kind of, I guess, like helped you evolve over the last few years?
Yoga is amazing. Guys, get into it. If you have not found a yoga studio or a yoga practice that you like, keep discovering. There's so many different ones out there, but it seems
like it is difficult for people to start it.
Yeah. And I really believe it just goes back to like finding the people and like the community that's meant for you. Like, I don't think Rayna's going to be for every woman. I think most women would enjoy it, but people have different tastes. People have different backgrounds. People are looking for different things. So same thing goes with yoga. Different studios have different vibes. And there's multiple types of yoga. So maybe you don't like vinyasa, but you like hatha, or maybe you don't like hatha, but you like yin.
Yeah. So,
doing that kind of self-discovery of what you like. But yoga has helped me so much. Everyone has masculine and feminine energy in them. But I feel like ever since a very young age, I've always been like very extreme, like very in my masculine or very in my feminine. Like when I'm working Rayna, even though it's a female empowerment company, like I'm in my masculine, like I really am. And then like at home and in yoga and with my family and like settings like this, like definitely my feminine comes out. Yeah. And so yoga has kind of helped me just like be more balanced, more aware, more, honestly, so many things. Like people think yoga is just an exercise, but it's like this whole way of being. And I was raised Roman Catholic, but more of like a spiritual Roman Catholic, not like a go to church every Sunday Roman Catholic. Okay. And I studied science in undergrad, so like yoga really tied in my like Catholic faith with my spirituality and science. And so yoga has multiple pillars, and one is the movement, asana, so like the actual physical movements or whatever. And then there's pranayama, which is your breath work. So I'm going to start there. Breath work has helped me so much. I think pretty much everyone has anxiety. There's just so much stimulation, so much temptation. It's like noise overload. And, we suffer from self-doubt, from imposter syndrome, all these things. And just getting back to your breath, it is scientifically a way to immediately change your biochemistry. And so it just calms you down. So I just feel like yoga in of itself has helped me a lot with my anxiety and just being in the present moment. Be where your feet are. Don't be in the past. Don't be in the future. I'm a firm believer that as you continue walking, the path reveals itself. So like you don't have to get caught up in the details of the future. You don't have to like be so hard on yourself from the past. Like it's what brought you to where you are now, right? So yoga has helped me tremendously in that aspect. And then also there's a bunch of other pillars about like detachment, think of things objectively. Don't be so attached. Don't be so possessive. Self-reflection is huge. Going kind of back to that loving awareness, like have grace with yourself, but be aware enough to call yourself out when you're being lazy or maybe you're holding yourself back.
Right.
Or if you maybe did something that wasn't really aligned with your higher self. So just reflection, introspection, and that detachment and non-judgment is so huge. Like you view the world so differently when you're just observing. I'm just here to observe. I'm just here to acknowledge. I'm not here to pass judgment. Judgment takes up so much energy, and we do it all the time. Like a girl doesn't have her nails painted, or a guy is short, and automatically we have judgments, and it's like, why?
It's external stigmas that have been built, and we're so externally stimulated that we don't take enough time to look internally and really figure out, okay, what am I even processing right now? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? We don't give ourselves that time, so we don't even realize we might be angry. We may not realize people, you're treating people poorly because you haven't taken that time to kind of just like look at yourself internally and be like, you know what, and maybe I'm holding on to some past anger or past judgments that I have been carrying for the last 5, 6, 7 years from some sort of trauma, maybe, or whatever that was, a situation in your life that created that, and then you carry that with you for. Some people carry it to their grave, right? Because they just never, and then they wonder why they have certain aches, why they have certain moods that are up and down all the time, and that's because you've allowed the external to control the internal, and like to kind of like what you were saying, you kind of have to get control of the internal, and then the external kind of is just there, and you kind of control it without trying to control it almost.
Yeah, you got kind of just are able to grow with the flow as it goes. And it's funny that you mentioned like you may not have even realized you were treating people you care about poorly just because you're like so
you're
not
consumed
it's consuming. And it's just interesting because basically in yoga, like the end goal is called samadhi. It's kind of like nirvana. And what it translates to is peace and harmony, which I think we all want peace and harmony in our life, right? Just to be in that flow, an intentional flow, right? But it's basically categorized as peace, tranquility, or peace, harmony, and tranquility. And so I thought about that. I was like, Stay Tranquilo is literally just trying to guide people to be at their higher self, like be content, be at peace. And I think a lot of that even just comes from being honest. So like, hey, going back to like I was treating people poorly, I didn't even realize it. Like going back, hey, I'm so sorry I overreacted, and like the way I spoke to you was not okay.
Right.
That is very vulnerable to say.
It's powerful,
but
too.
I've never. Very rarely has anyone ever said that to me after treating me poorly. But I go out of my way to like try to acknowledge it because it is powerful. And once you share that vulnerability with someone else, they will be vulnerable right back. And then as a collective, we start moving like more towards our authentic self. And going back to what I was saying with Rayna, like just talking about things that matter. Like so many of the things that our generation is like bringing to conversation and bringing to light was taboo, was unspoken. You just brush it under the rug. Exactly. And so I think that even just going back to personal accountability and personal ownership and saying, hey, I'm sorry, I don't even know why I acted that way. I was not being aware. you don't deserve to be spoken to like that. I hope you can accept my apology. Like, that goes such a long way in building unbreakable relationships, and just helping other people feel comfortable being themselves.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and it's funny because when I started Stay Tranquilo, I was in a very like meditative state, I would like to say. Like, I was probably peak in terms of like my meditation practice, just really taking the time to do it. And it's crazy how much clarity it brought into my life. It allowed me to kind of like handle past traumas in a way where I was just like able to let them go, But the first step in that whole process was me just becoming aware that they existed, right? What was some of the sensations that were going on in my body? What was some of the thoughts that were going on in my body? Why were they there? Why did they exist? But I didn't ever look at them with judgment. As I continued to grow through my meditation practice, the more they kept coming up, the more I was able to just kind of let them be and let them kind of naturally just what I call like disappear almost, right? Like they just dissipate. And that was a place where I had to be vulnerable with myself, right? Like I had to like sit with myself and actually, you know what? Yeah, there's no perfection, right? You're not this perfect person. No one's perfect, and you're never gonna have those expectations of a perfect person. And you need to be able to let that go. Like there's gonna be good, there's gonna be ugly, and you have to be okay with both of them and not be married to either one of them. They're there, they exist. You appreciate those moments, kind of like how you were saying, and it provides it's a freedom almost. It's liberating.
Yes.
It's a liberation, and it's powerful when you're able to get into that state, because you become so detached to everything else. Like you're not married to any results, any outcomes, expectations, all that's out the door. Like it's powerful.
It is so powerful, and to your point, it's liberating.
Yeah.
It just feels like a ton of weight has been lifted off your chest. Like you feel content, you feel at peace, and it makes life almost like a game. Because it's like, I already know I'm gonna fail.
Yeah.
So I don't have to stress about being this like pillar of perfection, because that's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So looking at yourself without judgment and kind of just letting things go, and again, acknowledging so that you can grow better and get better, and eliminate the amount of times that you're not being like your best self.
Yeah.
But it's just like failing is the only way to grow, and that's kind of what we're like here on earth for. Like perfection is for like the afterlife, whether you're Buddhist, Catholic, Jewish, like
it's
that's
not
what.
Here. Leave that for another time.
You're not meant to be perfect, so stop trying, stop making other people feel like they have to be perfect, and just like enjoy the journey of life, like embrace it. And I think we all take it a little too seriously. It is serious. Obviously,
it is serious, and I always live in that battle of like
right?
serious versus non-serious. Like I gotta be serious, but do I really have to be serious? Like how much of it really matters, And
I know.
It's perspective at the end of the day. You choose to make things important at the end of the day, and you're gonna value what's important to you, but there is a level of like, it's really not that important. But cool. So let me see where we're at. Before we kind of wrap up, I like to do kind of rapid questions, fun, however. But it's just something that I think is always cool to get to know the guest and give people a little bit of something to engage with. So you've probably seen them. I always do these polls on Instagram. Are you a sushi person or a pizza person?
Sushi.
What's the best sushi spot?
Okay, so honestly, Planta has the best sushi.
Planta in the Grove.
Yeah, Planta in the Grove or the South Beach. Best.
There's one in South Beach too.
Yeah,
okay.
Best sushi, honestly. So random, but Earl's Dayland I think has great
Really?
sushi.
I haven't been there in a while.
Sushi Mas also. But I have to disclaim, I don't eat fish, so I'm talking about the best veggie sushi rolls. But these are amazing. They have mango, they have guava, they have peach, they're pear, they get
flavor.
So creative with the recipes and the crunch and the texture, because I don't eat bad food, don't get me wrong, so the texture, the flavor, it's all there.
Nice, cool. I think I know the answer to this question, but beach or mountains?
Beach. I love the mountains to vacation, but the beach, honestly, it makes me realize it's not that serious. When you look at this giant piece of ocean and you're like,
it's just
okay,
open, God, it's the abyss. Like, it just goes on forever almost.
Yeah, I could be like in the most stubborn state of mind, like life sucks, this is so unfair, this is so hard, when does it end? And then I look at the ocean, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm 100% a beach person. Like, I do love the mountains. I think the mountains offer a level of tranquility as well. It's very peaceful up there. But there's just something about like being able to be on the sand and like soak up the sun and like go in the water. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for sunshine.
Yeah, me too. I just soak that shit up. Let's see. Movies. Are you like rom-com, action, comedy?
I love action movies.
Scary movies?
No,
okay.
scary movies. Nothing scary, please.
Okay.
I like action, and I like old school rom-coms, like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like that type of style. And I honestly love comedy, like anything that will just make you laugh.
Yeah,
'Cause,
I'm a big
life
comedy
is
guy.
stressful, so it's like
The stupider the better, honestly.
yeah. Yes, literally, I'm like, just have me laugh. I don't care.
I'm not
trying
use
to
any brain cells.
I'm not
to
trying to
watch
learn
this.
anything
Yeah,
new.
exactly.
I'm not trying to be here for personal development.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to laugh and like release
I agree.
the tension.
Like Office for me was like one of those shows that I would just put on just because I just wanted to be entertained. Like I didn't want to think. I didn't want to like be so immersed. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there's very well made shows and movies out there that like the production is like next level, right?
Yeah.
And it's stimulating and you're immersed in it. But to me, comedy just will always win.
Agreed.
And then last question, what does it mean to stay tranquila?
It means to honestly just like roll with the punches. Like, I can't even tell you, like, I'll give you an example. I was at the airport the other day, actually recently, like multiple airport experiences where like just everything was going wrong and like the people behind me were freaking out and they're like, how are you not freaking out? And I'm like, we're gonna get on the flight, don't worry. And they're like, we don't have seats. I'm like, they'll have seats, don't worry. Like, just kind of roll with the punches, like, and just be present. When you're working, work hard, be focused, and that groove, that rhythm, that when you're in the zone, like that feels good. So that can be a sense of being tranquila or tranquilo, you know, when it feels good. And then same with taking a step back, like when you just need a beach day or you just need to like lay on your couch and do nothing, or you need to take a vacation, do that. So just being present and being in tune with what your needs are, I think that'll keep you tranquila, because there's really just no one way to do it. It like you're constantly evolving. Every day looks different, so just kind of asking yourself, what is going to make me tranquila today?
Yeah.
You know, don't focus on the past, don't focus on the future. Just today, what will make me tranquila? And that'll look different every time. But if you tune in with yourself, you'll start strengthening that intuition and that relationship with your inner needs.
I love that. And what are some books or podcasts that you would recommend for someone to listen to or read?
Some books I would recommend, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. He kind of talks all about this. Like, he was in the monkhood and left to teach us all how to have more balance and more mindfulness and awareness. And so that's a great book about kind of everything we've been talking about. Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, I swear, is one of my favorites. I read it twice.
He's awesome.
He really is. He's such a down-to-earth dude. I was not expecting that.
He's exactly what I idolize to be.
Yeah, seriously. And then my last book would be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Even if you're not a founder or like anything, like you are a leader in your daily life. We all lead by example, whether it's you returning your shopping cart at the grocery store or maybe you lead a club, but like you're always a leader in every room you step into, and you're the leader of your life. No one else is in charge of your life except you. So a lot of people, when I recommend extreme ownership, they're like, oh no, but like I'm not a founder, or like, oh, I'm not a boss. And it's like, it doesn't matter, you're your boss. Like, so Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink is amazing. It's black and white. Like, he puts it so simply put that you can't deny it. So that message is amazing.
Cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
I know we've been trying to do this for a while, but it was awesome. It really was. So I definitely appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So thanks, guys, and
stay tranquilo, gang.
We'll see you guys soon.